Welcome back. In this video, we're going to review some color mixing. In first grade, we learned about two kinds of color mixing. First, we learned about monochromatic colors. Monochromatic color is whenever you take white or black and you add them to a pure color. So right here we have a gray scale, which is just white all the way up to black. And here we have a monochromatic scale. We have the pure color in the center, and then we've added white, more white, going out this way until we get all the way to white. And we've got different tints on this side. A tint is whenever you add white. And on this side, we've got the pure color and adding more black as we get down towards the black. And these you call a shade because you're adding black to the pure color. Okay. Then we also learned about mixing two primary colors together to get the secondary color in the middle. Red and yellow mixed together make orange. Blue and red together make purple. And blue and yellow together make green. So depending on what kind of color combination you get, you'll get some other different color here in the center. So in second grade here, we're just going to do a little review. The review is number one so that I can see you learned it and understand it from first grade. And number two, it's so that you have a little bit of practice going into our painting for second grade. So first things first, you're going to take a pencil and you're going to write your name up here. I'm going to write Mr. Lundgren. And then you're going to write your homeroom teacher's name. Let's say this is Weinberger. And please write those in nice and clearly so we know whose painting it is, because they should all look the same. Then we're going to start with the first one. The first line, you are going to do just black and white. Okay, black and white. On the second line, you're going to use green to make a monochromatic color scheme from one side to the other. And then we're going to use primary colors down here, and I'll describe the primary colors in a separate video. So first I'm going to start with black. Put just a little bit. Oof, that's a lot of black. But we probably won't need that much black, but I'll just leave it there. And then you're going to need some white as well. Before you get started, you should have a clean cup of water, an empty cup for dirty water. Dump a little bit of water into your personal cup so you have some for yourself and you can keep your colors clean. Then you're going to start with your brush. You should be using a 1/4 inch easel brush. And what you're going to do is you're going to start by getting a little blob of white on, and you're going to paint it into the white square. Just like that. Okay. Now your paint should be nice and thick and rich. It shouldn't be watery and thin. And I'm going to take this and actually put it right here so that we can kind of see what we're shooting for. This is what we're looking for. Basically, you're going to take a blob of white and put it into the middle so we can keep our colors nice and clean. And then you're just going to take a little pinprick of black. You can just see a little teeny bit on the tip of my brush there. And I'm going to add it into my white. Take another little pinprick because I didn't get enough. And we want to have a little bit darker gray color. I'm going to put that in where it says tint number 4. And you can see just ever so slightly a difference between those two. Then I'm going to take a little teeny prick more of black and add that in. And the idea here, boys and girls, is to go slowly and get your colors to change just ever so gradually. I should be able to see that each box is just a little bit darker, just a hair darker. Notice how I'm turning my brush as I paint in the little squares there. Okay, a little bit more black here. And mix it thoroughly. You can see how I'm mixing it thoroughly on my palette instead of just kind of squishing it together. Those are a little bit too close. Okay, they're not enough difference. So I'm just going to get a little more black and mix it in the attempt to get it to look a little bit different. Good, that's a little bit darker now. Now if I paint that next to here, it should be a little bit darker. Just ever so slightly. Okay. Now, just Just another little pinprick of black. Add that in. Is that dark enough? Good, we can see that. Okay, and that's actually pretty still on the light side. We'll add a little bit more black in here so we can get going. And in the middle section where it says pure color for the top, you want that to be gray. Okay, we want that to be a perfect grayish color. Okay, so as I'm working here, I'm going to mix up a little bit more. And let's see how that one looks. I would say that's pretty good. That's pretty middle gray. Maybe even a little too light for middle gray, but we can take that. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit more black in. A little bit more. You kind of have to guess from one to the next and kind of change them a little bit as you need to. Good, that's a little darker. And notice I've gotten to the shade part now. It says shade 1 right there. So that means it has to be a little bit darker towards the black side. We've passed middle gray now. And we want our colors to start getting darker and darker. Okay, this one should be even darker than shade 1. Boy, that's a little hard to see. I'll just add a little more black in. So you can see I'm having to adjust as I go a little bit more, so we make sure that our color changes for each square. We don't want it to be too light, too dark, or too much the same as the last square. So that one's just a little bit darker. Alright, and it's kind of hard, the light's shining off of it there. If I go like that, you can see it a little bit better. There you go. Add a little bit more black in. You can see I'm adding more in as I go. I'm adding less of a pinprick and more of a blob because I want to move a little, make sure I get a whole spectrum in here. I was a little too cautious in the front end. Okay, there's the next one, a little bit darker. Another little blob of black here. This is a very dark one now. Of course, it could be even, I could make even more, because this is definitely not even close to black. I could keep going. So there's a dark one. Now I'm going to take my brush, and on my blotting paper I'm just going to swipe it out the best I can and get pure black. And paint pure black right into that last square. Okay, so that would conclude our first line. Now I'm going to move on to the green here, and I'm actually going to bend this paper down so we can put it right up like this. The second line, we want you to use green. Why do we want you to use green? Because we're going to have to be mixing a lot of greens in our painting. And so I want to make sure that you have a good feel and a good ability for mixing green. Take your brush, wash it out really good so that you don't have any paint left in it before you start your next line. Okay? Make sure that you get that as clean as possible. Please, please, please make sure you kind of squeeze your brush. You can see how I'm pinching it. Don't pull on it, but I'm just pinching to get all of the extra water out of it so that our second line isn't all watery and gloobery. A lot of kids have a tendency to leave their paint too wet, or their paintbrush too wet, and then they have a really, really hard time getting it to look any good because it's too wet. Okay, so here's our green. I'm going to put a little blob of green on my palette. If you feel like there's not enough room, you can get a new palette. And I'm going to take the green, and I'm going to actually take the pure green, and I'm going to paint it right in this square here. Just like that. Okay, then I'm going to take some green and add it to my white. But first I'm going to wipe my brush off so that most of my green paint is off. And I'm going to get some pure white and just paint the white into this square without pushing down much so that my white is still white enough. Okay, so there's my white. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the white and kind of pull it off to the side this way and add a little teeny teeny pinprick of green in and mix it together. I'm going to pull my palette down a little bit so you can see it better. Now this is just a little bit to the green side. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. A little pepperminty green. Okay, so you can see how it's just ever so slightly to the greener side. I'm going to grab a little bit more green and add it in. Notice how I'm mixing it really well. Okay, there's my tint number 3 of green. I'm going to get a little bit more green, add it in. Should be a little bit to the darker side. I'd say a little bit more green. How's that? Is that better? Yeah, it's a little darker. Okay, so there's our next darker tint. And now I'm going to get a big chunk of green here and put it in and mix it in. And that'll be our darkest one. Now, in between all these monochromatic colors that I'm mixing, you could have many, many, many different colors. You could have almost an infinite amount of variations or changes from light to dark. And we're just doing a few here. But you could have lots more. Okay, so there's my kind of tints moving down to pure green. Then I'm going to kind of swipe my brush off. I'm going to wash it in my water cup here. And I really want to get all that water out. I'm going to dump my dirty water out. Wipe out my little cup. And then pour some fresh water. Make sure you keep your water fresh so that as you work through, you've got you don't contaminate your colors. Now what I'm going to do is, since black is stronger than green, I'm going to take just a pile of green off to the side here. I'm going to add just a pinprick of black in, and black is going to change the green pretty quickly. So I'm going to move slowly here. A little bit more, I guess. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, next I'm going to just add a little bit more black. And green is a really hard color to see with the shades because it gets really black really quickly. And it kills the color coming in. So although this probably looks almost like black on the screen, it's not nearly black. All right. So I'm going to keep going here, and you'll see it'll keep getting a little blacker each time. And when we're done, we'll show you the example in class under like some normal light, and you'll be able to see much clearer the difference between the greens. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more black to the last one here. That's a very, very dark green. I'm going to take my brush and swipe it off and pick up some pure black. And you'll see the difference between those two. Okay, and so that kind of concludes the first part of our color mixing for second grade. The first part is to show me that you can mix monochromatic colors in a grayscale from white all the way through all of the grays to black, and from white all the way to pure green, and green all the way to pure black. Okay, so that's what we need to do for the first half of our color mixing chart for second grade. In the second video, I'll show the bottom part with the primary color mixing.